Good one from Jack. Jack Butcher says, what has changed since the Richmond game for Hawthorn, or do we look at Richmond? Bit of both for me. I mean, Richmond were very, very poor that night. Really noticed their defensive intensity in that game was well down. And they've still got a fair bit of work to do on it. They were a fair bit better last week against Melbourne, but I reckon if you looked at their pressure numbers, and I didn't even see like their tackle numbers or whatever, but I'd be surprised if they were in the same ballpark as they were last year. But they've certainly improved on that since the Hawthorn game. But I think, it gets back to what we were saying about the mark numbers tonight. 100 marks, a lot of the footy, but not much system eventuating from that. Not a lot of run and overlap. And a lot of that now has to do with the defensive systems oppositions employ. And there's sides now are so careful with that ball movement that we tend to get into a real stalemate where a side defends ball movement really well and the other side is so cautious that they will do anything to avoid taking a risk with it. And that is different. Look, Hawthorn back in the three-peat days were a very high possession, uncontested mark sort of team then. The difference was there were more holes in opposition defences for them to pick their way through. I think the art of defence, and this is the worrying trend for the game, or part of it, the art of defence has continued to get better year by year, only incrementally. But I reckon if you had a look at how teams defend in, say, 2020, 2019 versus 2013, they're a lot tighter. There are a lot fewer gaps. And thus the sides that do rely on possession are spending longer in their build-ups and often sort of baffling themselves because they won't take a risk. And at some point, and I think it'll come with the Hawks where, they lose a few in a row and they're just not kicking scores, they're going to have to bite the bullet and be more prepared to kick to a contest and more prepared to back, more riskier movement of the ball through the middle of the ground. Don't you think?
The issue, I think, for Hawthorn is that, first of all, their game plan, premiership game plan, you're quite right, was, they had the lethal left footers. They had a game plan based on precise kicking, and they trusted it from deep in their backline, didn't they? And not many teams were willing to go pinpoint passing. And I'm talking about even when players seemed to be manned up, they were willing to take on the 30-metre sharp pass. Very hard to do it after those players move on and the club sort of turns over their list. Don't worry, every club's looking for beautiful kicks. It's not like, Hawthorn were left exclusivity to pick up players who kick the ball well. They had put together a very, very good list. So now they are more, Clarko doesn't have a particular feature to work with. He just has to coach that team like most teams are coached, obeying the basic laws of football. And the basic law of football really is a combination of disposal ability matched up with leg speed. You can't be slow. And you've also got to have the physical strength to compete in stoppages. So you need a footballer that ticks those boxes. And I think where Hawthorn is on the downward slope, and it's a very, very slippery one that you slide down very quickly, is that they have players that used to tick those boxes, but as they get older, they lose out on leg speed and even a bit of that body strength. And that comes quickly, and it ends a team's ability to play contested football very well, very quickly. So look at some of the older players in that Hawthorn team, and the gaps and the ability for them to make contest to contest goes away quickly. You can't have those players in your team.
Yeah, well, the other thing about them in the premiership years was, as much as we did talk about their kicking skills and uncontested marks and possession footy, they also had great defensive pressure. I mean, we talk about that forward defensive pressure. They were terrific at it. It was never really concentrated on that much because the focus was always on the precision of their kicking. But you have a look, in any year they won those flags, their forward pressure was as good as anyone's. And they've lost a fair bit of that as well.
Yeah, so what's the back six now, as we see it? You've got, well, we know what we've commented on Frawley, haven't we? You've got Sicily, who's out, a very good player, Sicily, no problems there. Stratton, is he quick enough really at the drop of the ball to be a decent small defender? I don't think so. I just don't think he's got that sort of quick twitch ability. And then some of the other guys they run through there, I guess you're never going to get Hodges and Birchall, or you can't get Hodges and Birchall. You don't pick them up every year, do you?